Hello, dearies. Welcome to Undersampled Radio, episode 58. We have a very exciting episode for you today.
We do.
I think I say that every episode, but it generally turns out to be true.
Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, but today is a bit special.
It's a bit special because we have Evan Bianco with us.
Yeah, we do.
Camera two.
Which one's camera two?
Oh, wait, no, I don't know. Anyway, the three of us and about, 40 others of us.
Yeah, something like that.
Are sitting around in Houston, Texas this weekend, coding various hackathon projects for the Subsurface Hackathon 2017 Houston edition. Now, you need to use all those qualifiers because there have been several hackathons already this year. So,
yeah. Well, and actually, I've been referring to this Houston one as the Geophysics Hackathon because it's the SCG annual meeting next week, and we sort of have a theme of geophysics, but actually, there's quite a few geologists here.
Yep.
So maybe it's just another subsurface hackathon. Cool either way. It's hashtag subhack. If you want to read the tweets I'm not writing, I think you've been pretty active on Twitter.
Very, very active with Twitter. It's actually the most active Twitter day I think I've ever had.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. And so you can follow along with some of the action on there. Yeah, and we've got how many teams?
9 teams.
Okay, yeah. Okay. It seems like it goes up every time. That's cool.
Yeah, people are splitting off,
right?
Deciding to work on different projects. So yeah.
What are you working on, Evan?
I'm working on photographic taking.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm helper and publicity guy. So, but yeah, I want to get that raspberry shake. I don't know if it's possible, but that's if I get a little bit of time, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Yeah.
See what that thing.
Yeah, I brought a few gadgets along to this one, and one of them is the geophone attached to a Raspberry Pi called a Raspberry Shake, raspberryshake.org, and it'll stream data actually straight onto the internet, onto kind of the global seismometer network. But you can do things with the streaming data from your shake and from other shakes, alongside data from legit seismometers around the world. So yeah, give that a go. And in a minute, we're going to get some of the teams in to find out what they're working on. But yeah, we've got a good diverse array, and as well as all the hackers this time, we've also got a decent entourage of sort of support from Amazon AWS, from NVIDIA, from SIGOPT, from a couple of the sponsors. So Paradigm has, well, actually, Kamal from Paradigm is hacking on one of the teams. Who else? David Holmes from Dell is trying to set up. Well, actually, we should try and do a little OB. We can go and listen to this. So it's a $30,000 server.
Do you want me to fetch David maybe after?
Yeah. Let's talk to David.
Yeah. Actually, I'll check. I think he said he was just running the Radio Shack.
Well, I mean, if you have a $30,000 server, it should be supported by $3 parts from Radio Shack.
Yeah.
So he's doing his part to keep things on their toes. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I love how the hackathon always involves a couple of trips. Yeah, actual trips to electronic stores and things like that.
He had 2 engineers in from Dell that built the thing.
Right.
Standing around him for a little bit of time, and it was like, we need to superpower this hackathon. And
I actually took some photos of the designers of the computer working on the computer. So I'm going to put those on Twitter very shortly.
Oh, nice.
Don't put your hand on that.
Innovation is happening.
You're shaking the camera.
Oh,
you're shaking camera too.
I'm nodding and shaking because we're in what's almost a professional studio environment today. There's like acoustic treatments on the walls, but you can't shake the table, so it's not quite.
It's the best thing that I've ever recorded in.
Yeah,
it's very nice. So, Evan, you want to go grab us a team to chat about some projects with?
Yeah, I'm going to bring Dawn from
team name.
The team that she's on.
The team name is? He needs his notebook. We'll hear about the team name.
Yeah. Why don't you guys tell us a story about I don't know, the space that we're in today or something. I'll like go and get done.
Yeah, she definitely mentioned the space. And I hadn't finished subtly listing off the sponsors either.
Oh, I was just, a lot of the teams don't have a name yet, so I don't want to like throw it out there. So she's maybe, I said, think of a name, commit to your name.
Just come up with one on the walk over this way.
Did I ask you what the name is?
Oh, look at that.
Oh, cameras.
Cameras, very subtle camera switching.
Yeah.
We can use camera 1 for a bit, just so I can practice clicking it.
I can move around
table.
so we're not holding hands anymore if you want.
Is that what I was holding? Yeah, so I did just want to mention also Schlumberger also sponsored, as did Pioneer Natural Resources, and actually Andrea Cortis from Pioneer is also here helping out, chatting to the teams. So yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
Are you working on a project?
I am not. No, I've been trying to get the Shake up and running.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so we'll see. We've got one more sponsor I should mention, Enthought. Also helped out, and actually I'm kind of hoping someone from Enthought pitches up because I could use some help with my shaky thing. But yeah, and I wanted to mention the space as well because it's a pretty cool space in downtown Houston on Fannin Street called Station Houston. So if you're looking for a co-working space in Houston, you should check it out because they've got tons of room. Like it's pretty huge, and I think they do all sorts of stuff with startups and competitions, pitch contests and stuff like that. So yeah, seems like a good place. Cool. Looking pretty comfortable so far, eating breakfast tacos and whatnot. I'm going back to that camera. It's much better.
It is. I've been
wrong with this one.
Working on generative systems this weekend, sort of generally. I'm not actually working on a project, but a hackathon project per se. But I have been kind of picking around on some generative adversarial networks of various architectures. I'm writing an article, as I think you are, in the CSEG recorder coming up soon. And I'm going to do something about generative networks for some type of geophysical data, probably seismic. And one of the teams here, maybe we'll meet them later, is using generative adversarial network to actually there's two teams doing it. One is using networks to demultiple some seismic shot records. The other one is using it to what? Oh, they're generating seismic sections. That's what they said. I hope we get to hear that from them.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Anyway, lots of neural networking going on, but we have our first contestant.
Gentlemen, like to introduce you to Dawn.
Hi.
Who you've met previously.
Have a seat.
Okay. Cool.
Thanks for joining us. I don't know, have you heard one of our podcasts by any chance? Probably not.
I have actually.
Oh, you have?
Oh,
awesome.
Sorry to hear that.
But a guest podcaster.
Oh, yeah?
Matt Jackson gave one.
Oh,
or
okay.
I think it's connected.
Chris Jackson.
Chris Jackson. So
Chris Jackson. Yeah. Yeah, he's been on 3 times?
A bunch of times.
Yeah, a bunch of times. Yeah.
Okay.
Good. So,
cool.
So welcome to the show, and we're excited to hear about your project. But first, what's your team name?
Well, they don't have a team name, do they?
Oh, we get to think of one.
Yeah.
But they've named what they're building. So.
Okay, so what are you building?
Help name Dawn's team, please write in.
Yeah.
It's that camera over there. Sorry.
Okay. Cool.
I'm not on it anymore.
Okay. So our technology cool app thing, we're calling it Hutton. So it's an integrated Alexa skill. So you can ask Hutton all kinds of questions about an exploration database.
Love it.
Give us an example.
So Alexa, ask Hutton how many wells are in my exploration database. There are 32 wells. How many of those wells have gamma ray logs? 12.
Awesome.
How many of those have core? 4. And kind of so on and so on.
That's really cool. Does Alexa, the way that she works sort of out of the box handle all that connection between questions so that you don't have to, you can basically just sort of extend your question by keeping on talking?
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's
So you start by building these kind of modules called intents. So what is the intent of a question? And then you can code in maybe all the different ways that someone might ask that question. So give me all the wells in X basin, or tell me the wells that are in the Bakken formation. And then, so the way we built it is the team right now is working on building a database on the Amazon Web Services. So it's embedded there.
Right.
And our database, Alexa goes out and queries the database, finds all the information, comes back and puts it through our Echo Dot. So
Awesome.
Pretty fun.
That's pretty amazing. And you guys had something like a prototype working after like 2 hours or something today.
Yep.
So you must have been working with the Alexa API and AIs and chatbots for a long time before today.
No, not at all.
What is your day-to-day? You're a geologist, aren't you?
I'm a geologist, so my day-to-day, I work in a research lab. So I look at thin sections, I look at seismic data, so geologic interpretation of various different image data types.
So how are you learning all this stuff on the fly?
So they've actually got a whole lot of kind of walk you through it skill sets embedded in the whole thing. So there's a GUI that they've put together that I don't actually go in. Well, I do now, but if you don't want to do any coding, you can go in and click buttons and build the app that way. But with connecting it to our database is a little bit more involved.
More complicated, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think about the hackathon? This is your first hackathon.
First hackathon. I'm excited. I've met a lot of really cool people. A lot of people that are way smarter than me. I've learned a lot, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, that's great. That's really cool. We've got quite a few geologists actually. I was just saying earlier on before we came in that because it was sort of loosely attached to SEG, it called it a geophysics hackathon, but it's actually pretty broad. People aren't just tackling geophysics problems. So yeah, thanks for being part of it and being brave enough to come in into that environment. But I love how you also had this Alexa, like you were pretty keen on that project and you like made sure that it was going to happen.
You showed up with the idea more or less, right? And
yes.
Stood by a whiteboard and recruited people all evening, right?
I did.
And it didn't take you long.
Not at all. No.
Yeah, that's really cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on and telling us about your project.
We look forward to seeing the demo.
All right.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll walk you out and I'll bring back our next victim, who will be the one and only Joe Kington from
Planet Labs.
a team that also doesn't have a name. But yeah, Joseph Planet Labs. But
I see.
his team will have a name by the time they go back here.
Awesome.
And start it out. So.
Okay.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks.
Cheers. Yeah. See ya. Pretty sweet.
He's back. He's back in it.
I'm back in the picture.
Yeah.
I just stepped out for a moment.
So I think for me, the coolest part about doing these events or just coming to these events is to see how many ideas come to life, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here's someone who's a geologist who's like coding Lex skills.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And she told me they've got 3 Echo Dots, I think, in her house, and so she's been getting, she's used to the interaction with Alexa and had sort of already Googled whether there were some geological skills that Alexa had, and apparently there is like a gemstone factoids or quiz or something, but there's basically like 3 or 4. So they're definitely on the bleeding edge with Alexa skills. But it's cool. Yeah. So they're thinking about having Alexa in the corner of your meeting room and being able to just like, hey, remind me, what's Anadarko's position in this play, or what's the last land sale? I think that's a genuinely useful tool, right?
Yes, it is.
Save us all from actually remembering anything or writing anything down ever.
Do you do much of that?
I've actually sort of fallen off the note-taking bandwagon. I used to be an avid note-taker. I would fill several notebooks a year, and I still have them all on my shelf, but I don't take many notes anywhere anymore. When I go to conferences and talks and things, I write a lot of it down, a lot of what I'm hearing or thinking or whatever, but I spend a lot of time on the computer now. Just, I have 20, 30 tabs open, and I'm just, I don't know if that counts as taking notes.
No, it counts as ADD.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
I think my career's over.
So what are you looking for in a demo, in a hackathon demo?
Oh my goodness. I mean, The trick to a demo is having a nice story. I mean, that's all it comes down to, is telling a bit of a story.
Yeah.
The content is sort of second.
Yeah.
Weirdly, Joe.
Hello.
Come in. Welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe Kington from Planet Labs.
And he's got an awesome lid cover.
Here we go.
Well, it's the
camera
cell
screen.
phone.
Hey, that's fantastic.
Okay, that is pretty. That's
That's
pretty
very
cool.
Yeah, it's cool. It's our, like birthday presents. I think is it birthday presents? I don't remember.
Okay, so what I'd like to see is the same thing, but actually it's moving and it's a different thing every day.
There we go. There we go. You see a video screen in the back of the laptop? It's,
AR.
yeah.
He's gonna ask for selfie laptops.
Yeah.
Flip screen, take selfie.
Self-top.
Self-top.
It just shows your face. It's transparent. You know, it just shows like.
That would actually be really bizarre looking.
My little sister was telling me the other day that the opposite of a selfie, the forward-facing camera, is a UE.
Yeah, that's
Awful.
I don't know.
It's called a picture.
Yeah. So, what are you working on? What's the team? What's the
So basically,
project?
we're doing kind of disaster data. I think we're the one team doing something related to disaster. In our case, not so much relief, but as investigating the flooding that happened. So our basic premise is that a lot of the flooding, a lot of what you've seen as far as modeled what flooded and what flooded really severely, we understand well. We can predict. Hydrologic models and actually say, okay, or maybe just stream gauges say essentially, here's discharge of the stream, here's what that maps out to elevation wise, here's what it flooded. But there's a lot more flooding that occurred just at the street level. So flooded streets, these are like not, they're not captured that very well. So if you look around and you talk to people, basically most of the streets in town flooded at some point. And so knowing whether or not your street's going to flood is kind of an interesting question. It's not something that's modeled well by hydrologic models. So we thought we'd kind of take a step back. There's someone put up I think it's called UFlood, but it's like floodmap.io or something like that. And I don't think it's up anymore, but it was they put it up during Harvey and it was purely crowdsourced. So everyone just went through and flagged like, hey, my street's flooded, and they did a database dump. And so it's hour snapshots throughout about a 5-day period, marking what streets were flooded and when. And so that's an interesting crowdsourced kind of observation of where the street level flooding happened. And then the thought was take something fairly simple, like take a DEM, and let's extract some features on it. Let's look at average slope in the area, how high is it above a river, things like that. I don't really know exactly what we're going to extract yet, but the idea is stuff. Put stuff in there, put it on a sausage grinder. And so we can take the observations of what flooded, train on a subset of that, use features from the DEM, extract it from the DEM, the feature engineering, and then we can predict, again, what would have flooded based on features in the DEM. What's interesting about that is not necessarily it's going to work that well, but the areas it predicts flooded that maybe didn't flood are interesting. It's a thing of, okay, a lot of the flooding was maybe a storm drain got clogged. So it's an area that maybe next time, you didn't flood, but it's because your neighbor kept your storm drain clear.
Right.
So that's the idea, is make a pseudo quantitative prediction of what streets are at risk for flooding, as opposed to kind of what areas are at risk for the house flooding. And not this correlates with house flooding as well, but it's not as direct. It's more like, don't park your car in the street in this area.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Is the city infrastructure available? Like, where's the plumbing and the drainage system?
That is, I think we've got it downloaded. I'm not sure how we're going to use it yet, but it's there. So it's been interesting. There's a wealth of data. It's no shortage of data. I think I focused on the DEM stuff because I think it's easy to pull off in a short time. But there's a lot of other stuff. So there's the sewer drains are one. So in Houston, all the first order streams, all the little streams they're underground. Basically, they've been paved over. They've all been replaced. In some cases, over 100 years ago. The ones downtown, and some of those are pretty big creeks. They filled in these 20-foot kind of little creek valleys and just filled them completely in. And now
it's not a culvert or anything. Or
exactly,
like
it's an underground pipe with it. They filled in. They put a pipe in there, filled it in, and then there's storm drains that go in that pipe.
I see.
And the pipe only got put in after they filled in the valley, and realized that didn't work very well. There's some interesting stories about downtown Houston flooding back in, it's a tangent, but I won't take too much time. But the worst flooding was actually 1935 for downtown. So yeah, for a lot of the central area of Houston, this wasn't the worst flooding on record. Now, it was by far the worst in terms of rainfall volume and in terms of the overall area impacted. But now Addicks and Barker reservoirs, which are part of the reason the flooding was so bad for the subdivisions that are inside them, They were built to protect downtown. So they do a really good job of protecting downtown. So the 1935 flood was way worse for the downtown, near town area, just in terms of water levels in the bayou, because that devastated downtown.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, I'm completely sidetracked.
No, that's cool. That's what our show is for.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, Joe, you brought your laptop.
Yeah,
Is there
I can show like some of this. So let's see if we can get the camera to see this.
maybe middle camera is the highest resolution?
There we go. Switch. All right, so what we have here, this is some of the crowdsourced data. I just thrown it in QGIS and put a Google Map backdrop there. So the red points are some of the streets that were mapped as flooded. I just took all the data and all those timestamps and just collapsed it down. Was it ever reported as flooded or not?
Okay, and that's a kind of heat map there.
It's just raw points, but you can think of it.
Okay.
Yeah, visually right now it looks like a heat map.
Oh yeah, no, you're right.
There's a little bit of bias there because what happens is you have the areas where a lot of people live who are likely to use that site report. So the Heights, according to this, almost every street in the Heights flooded. The Heights, I know, is one of the less flooded areas. Now, that's not to say there were a lot of streets flooded. There were a lot of streets flooded, but yeah, it's interesting to kind of look at the data. So we've got detailed LiDAR-based DEMs, downloading all those. I'm not sure if I'll use the full 1 meter resolution LiDAR data, but it's there. There's one of those little quarter quads there.
What's the acquisition on those? Did they fly drones?
2008. It's be aerial. No, it's not satellite. LiDAR is always you can't really do LiDAR from space. So this is going to be a plane, just airplane, fly low.
And you say sort of what you're really interested in is sort of anomalies where you might have expected it to flood based on topography, and it didn't.
Yeah.
Or you might not have expected it to flood, but it did.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's some of the things like that. I think there's an interesting story in the what areas that weren't in floodplains that flooded.
Right.
Because a lot of times it's not. I think it can be extracted. I think a lot of this is just a lot of Houston's very flat.
Yeah.
So you dump a lot of water on it, even if you're high up. If you're high up and flat, it doesn't necessarily always help. So a lot of this isn't devastating flooding. And worse, these were things where the older houses are on pier and beam, the new houses are on a slab, and the slab foundation got 2 inches of water in the house, and the pier and beam was fine. Stuff like that. But it's a part of the flooding that I think is not well mapped. So
right.
play around with it.
Have you worked on sort of citizen hack type projects before?
No, actually.
Okay.
So I have to admit, we're stealing. So there's a really interesting Slack channel and a lot of people in Houston that were involved in citizen hack for hurricane response. You may have heard about some of the Twitter calls for help and people actually being rescued through that way. There was actually a couple people basically building web mapping applications to show those in real time, try to keep them coordinated and updated. A lot of cases, it was like, here's a spreadsheet, we're all updating, so make a map out of this just so people can see it.
Right.
It was all kind of, I wasn't a part of that at all. So there's some really cool stuff that happened though, and Justin Gosses, who's here, actually was a part of that, a lot of that. And so I'm stealing a lot of these ideas and data sets from him.
Yeah, I actually want to mention, if you are in Houston, or you're interested in sort of contributing as a coder to the response to Hurricane Harvey, there's a Slack called Sketch City. Sketch City, I think it's sketchcity.org, or the Slack's out there as well. And that is really active. There's tons of people building stuff like every day. Many of them are actually based or do some of their work out of Station Houston, where we are today. And I think they're grateful for any kind of donations of time or indeed money to help them in that work. But yeah, I feel like geoscientists have a lot to potentially contribute in there, right? Because we're very used to sort of geospatial data analysis and that kind of thing. So it's something to think about as seeing things like earthquakes badly affecting people and storms and things. I think it's really opened my eyes, even just thinking about some of the projects we might sort of see today and talking to some of these people from Sketch City, just how many ways that earth scientists can contribute to those sort of problems. Well, not contribute to the problems, but to those sort of projects.
No, I think it's a really good point because earth science is fundamentally very broad. We work with a lot of stuff on the earth, for lack of a better word. So there's a lot there.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, it sounds like an awesome project. We're looking forward to seeing the maybe not finished product, but demo, whatever comes out at the end of the weekend.
See the other end of the sausage grinder.
That's right.
All right.
Cool. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Have
Take
fun.
care.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks.
All right then. So have we got more victims lined up?
Yeah, we have one more victim.
Okay.
I'm going to bring over Colin Sturm. Okay. From teamauger.ai. This is a team with a name. And
Does augur.ai correspond to a URL?
Well, not yet,
But it will.
hopefully.
So if you're watching this live, don't even try it. If you're watching this tomorrow, try it.
Back in a moment.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, very good.
So you got a haircut here in Houston.
Yeah, I did.
It looks good.
Yeah, thanks.
How did it? How was it? Was it one of these very fancy? It had a fancy name, as I recall.
In the black, yeah. Yeah, it's just quite a nice salon. I don't generally go to salons like that anymore since I moved out of the big city. Yeah, I mean, there's not nowhere to get my hair cut in my own bay, but there's sort of one option, you know, it's like a lady in a bungalow.
Oh, I thought you were going to say it's I do it myself.
Yeah, or I do it myself.
Yeah.
Which, you know, doesn't usually go very well.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
Of course.
And I do quite like, for some reason, because I often get my hair cut when I'm in another place, I've sort of grown to quite like that.
Yeah.
Just trying different places is fun.
Neat. So we've just been talking about haircuts, and we're ready to get back to something more technical. So, Colin,
Thank goodness you're here.
welcome.
Thank you.
Hey, Colin.
Thanks.
Colin Sturm from augur.ai.
Augur.ai.
Why augur.ai?
There was a suggestion from one of our members. It's relating to some Greek mythology. A person that would seek out information.
Yeah. Cool. So what's the project? What's the aim?
The project is we're looking at electric submersible pumps, and we've got a set of data that we've acquired, and we're looking to see if we can predict something from the data. So maybe figure out if the pump's going to fail, or maybe just know if there's some potential problem.
Cool. What's the strategy? Do you have an architecture? Do you have a toolkit in mind?
Well, strategy is we've been mainly looking at getting the data into working order. That seems to always
it's
be
usually 90% of the work, right?
Yeah, that's been a bit of a struggle. But there's also been some missing data, missing fields in that,
All right.
missing numbers. So trying to backfill some of that.
The old imputation question.
Yeah.
Yep.
Some of that's a project in itself.
Mm-hmm.
And after we get the data in order, then we're looking at potentially using some sort of machine learning, maybe some neural networks or some random forest. Or we're not sure yet if we're going to use the supervised or unsupervised methods.
Cool. Do you have labels? Or would they be? Would you guys create labels for the data that you have?
We do have labels on the data.
Cool.
So and it's a time series data set.
So the labels are sort of downtime. Is that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we've got it labeled as failure, and not failure. It's running or not running.
Okay.
Binary classification. Yeah. Cool. Well, it's a hugely important topic. I mean, you could potentially save some people a lot of money if you figure it out. So
yeah, hopefully we'll make us some money too.
Yes.
And are pumps your day to day? Are you a reservoir engineer?
My role is production,
Okay.
completion, reservoir. So I'm in a technical service role. So I help our regions with problems that they have.
Okay, I see.
But I'm not mainly focused on pumps. I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, right. That's just one of the things.
One aspect.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Are other I think I overheard you saying it was like 75 days continuously of recorded data. Or
That's the data that we got was 75 days of data for approximately 400 pumps.
Yeah, and what kind of measurements are taken? Like
the measurements for the pumps are mainly pressure, temperature, the amperage, voltage for the pumps, and there's some. I think those are the main.
And what out of that data set is that's 400 pumps, 75 days. Like how many failures are there roughly in there? Because I would, if I owned 400 pumps, I feel like 75 days, I would kind of expect none of them to fail. Is that
Well,
a
well,
poor
it doesn't
assumption?
mean that each one of these pumps started 75 days ago.
No, of
They
course,
could
yeah,
have been running
absolutely.
for 2 years, 3
Right.
years, 4 years.
Okay.
So out of the last 75 days, we're still looking at the data set. So
Okay.
we're not sure, but we're thinking maybe there's 10 to 15 failures in that time span.
Okay.
What happens when a pump fails? And what's the process to put it back online again? Does it damage production? Does it clog up, the moving of fluids and that?
It really depends on what the failure is. So if the failure is as simple as something went wrong with the driving computer that sends a signal down, then you would reset something at the surface to get the pump running again. Or maybe there wasn't enough, so you need to increase or look at why that's not working anymore. If it's something more catastrophic, such as sand is getting into the pump, or maybe there's a lightning strike that's hit the surface and caused issues, then you may need to actually use a workover rig to physically pull the pump out,
Right.
and then replace it with a new pump.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
So it sounds like the data set is what, like 2.5%, 3% bias data set imbalance. You have like 3% minority samples, failure samples as compared to 400 non-failure samples.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with a couple of classic data science problems, right? Data imputation and balancing a data set, right?
Yeah, it's curious to me, this is maybe what kind of prevention signals or symptoms of a catastrophe about to happen, say, and like early detection system of something about to fail. There's almost like a different label to that. For instance,
Yeah, that's why
it's not really a binary
it's sort
labeling
of
scheme. It's like, a problem is about to happen. Can you prevent something before, and I guess my question is what's the state of the art? How are people dealing with this? Are they just reacting to when lights go red, or are people, reacting in advance? What's the kind of, what do you hope to kind of improve from the current workflows or operations?
Yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to address, is figuring out when there is some human interaction that needs to happen. We're not exactly sure how that's going to play out yet.
what if you like smooth your your failures back in time? So you have, instead of failure, not failure, you have a cascade.
Yeah, and we can actually look at, since we have about 20 different tags for each well,
Mhm.
or each pump, we can look at as the amperage is increasing, there's potentially something wrong with the pump,
right?
Because you're needing to put more energy into it to move the same amount of fluid.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's sand in there, or maybe it's just because the reservoir is depleting, and you need to increase the pressure.
Cool.
So, yeah, exactly what you're saying.
So one more question that I've been interested to hear from everybody is, how's the hackathon going?
Oh, the hackathon, I mean, for myself, I'm loving it. It's fantastic. I know the guys I'm working with are having a good time too, but it's just great to sit down with some other people that are just enthusiastic about machine learning, Python, and trying to just solve a difficult problem.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us. Get back to it.
All right.
And then we hope you solve the problem.
Yeah. And thank you guys for organizing this.
Cheers.
And having us here.
Awesome.
All right.
Nice to have you. Cheers,
Thanks,
Colin.
guys.
See you later.
Slide over for a few minutes.
Yeah.
So,
hop on in here.
I wonder.
Do you want to get back in the shot?
Well, yeah, I'm a little bit tempted. No, not that one. I'm a little bit tempted to go and try. Yeah.
Okay.
Try find David.
Live?
Standing next to it. Yeah.
Right now.
Just right now.
Okay.
Just doing it. I'm going. No, you guys. I feel like I was gonna say you guys just stay here, and then it's not too weird.
Okay.
It's probably weird already now that I've said that.
Go.
But yeah.
No.
Go. You're out of here, man. Okay.
watch me.
I will control the camera while you do that. So you sidle up.
Okie dokie.
And
So
we'll,
this could be interesting, or David could still be at Radio Shack. So
yeah.
we'll see what happens.
So let's do this.
That's good. How do you like interviewing people? You can tell they're like, what people are gonna ask.
I love interviewing people because
I end up having more questions the more people talk, and
Yes.
I don't know how to be like, all right,
thank you. Yeah.
that's the end.
That's
all we have time for right now.
So this is your interview as an Undersampled radio host. How do you think you do it?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess, it's like speaking. You watch a lot of people presenting, and it's always different when you do it. So I appreciate following your guys' lead.
We have fun doing it.
You have an audience to entertain as opposed to just having a conversation. So I can appreciate there's a craft to it. And I appreciate the odd opportunity to be on the side of the camera instead of watching on YouTube.
We love having you on. So Matt's walking around, and I'm just realizing now that, as you can see, actually I should have left this camera on the whole time. You can see this, we're in only half of the building over here.
Yeah.
He's on the other side where there are many, many hackers working on their projects. This camera, this view, oh, he was just over at the big machine, which is the okay, hold on. He's trying to say something, and I don't know how to allow him to.
So can you hear me?
There we go. Now we can hear you, now that your mute is off.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Cool.
So I've come over here. David's not here.
Well, we saw a brief shot of the computer.
Like all best laid plans. Yeah, let me show you the computer. It's pretty loud, so I don't know if you're going to be able to hear me talking.
That whining.
There it is.
The computer running. So those are the CPUs.
Here.
Yes. And memory on the.
I don't touch it, but I guess underneath there are the GPUs.
Yeah, 4 NVIDIA P100s.
So I'm going to have a little look for David, but yeah, were you looking before at my view of this room?
Yeah, well, we saw a little bit. So here are some teams hacking away. How many teams are in there? 4?
Yeah, I think you're looking at 5 teams there actually, and there's another one over there.
Cool.
Yeah, so everyone's very busy, and what is it? It's 3:30 on a Saturday afternoon, so teams have been going for sort of 7.5 hours at this point coding, and we got about another 2 or 3 hours to go today, and then they'll get started again at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt, for the in-field.
You're welcome. Are you guys going to wrap up now, or shall I come back, or what?
No, we don't want you.
Okay, awesome. I'm just going to sit in a yellow chair.
Okay, good.
And
all right, folks, thanks for joining us on Undersampled Radio at the Subsurface Hackathon Houston 2017.
24th floor.
Station Houston.
Station Houston.
yeah, if you're watching and you're in Houston, come down. Like especially tomorrow afternoon, Sunday afternoon, it's going to be awesome.
Come down right now. There's extra banh mi and tacos.
Station Houston. On Polk Street.
See you next week. Undersampled Radio.